Hi, and welcome back. I am your host and healer, Teresa Bruni. My life's calling is to help heal this planet, and that healing begins with enlightening and educating you, the listener. It's time to uncover the truth. Today's episode is how unmanaged fear and anxiety is making you sick. What if everything you've ever been taught about life was wrong? Sadly, a lot of what you've been taught is wrong. And all that wrong thinking is keeping you stuck and making you sick. There is a better way, and that's been hidden from you. These methods of achieving a truly abundant life are no secret. These are laws of living that can be traced all the way back to the First Testament. Today, we refer to them as the law of attraction. For centuries, these truths have been kept from you, your parents, and even your grandparents. And they were never taught to us in school. You will only find them if you begin to open your mind and dig for deeper truths. And that's what my goal is for you today. I invite you to come along on this journey with me. I'll teach you how and why all of these wrong beliefs got started and how they continue to manifest in our world. And I'll give you some tools to break through those limiting beliefs that you've been taught. I'll show you how to empower your life from the core. Are you ready for this journey? Because your life will never be the same starting now. We will explore fear, what it is, and how it is created. So let's get started. What is fear anyway? Broken down into its simplest definition, fear is an emotion. It is not tangible. You can't touch it, but you can feel it. It's very unpleasant, and it can feel like dread, anxiety, and even terror. Fear is caused by the belief that something or someone is dangerous to us. Fear causes anxiety, panic, excessive worry, and uncontrollable mind chatter. It's very uncomfortable, and it can last for seconds, minutes, hours, and even days, depending on the situation. It's important to understand the difference between depression and fear. Depression is caused by thoughts of the past. Having regrets and wishing we had made different choices can make us feel depressed. On the other hand, fear is worry about the future. What will happen if? Fear is all about that big what if question. Fear comes in many disguises. Again, it includes anxiety, rage, blame, doubt, hatred, prejudice, jealousy, judgment, and so on. It's important to know that we as humans are hardwired for managing fear with the fight, flight, or freeze response. It's more commonly referred to as the fight or flight response. This is an amazing instinctual response that allows us to spring into action quickly and effectively, or freeze when necessary. This response is intended to keep us and those we care about safe. It was a vital, innate response for our ancestors who lived in the constant fear of predators such as saber-toothed tigers. And although we no longer fear being attacked by saber-toothed tigers, this innate response still serves us today. We've all heard the mind-blowing story about the 63-year-old grandmother who suddenly had the strength to lift a car off of her grandson. If you haven't heard that story, do a quick Google search and it will come right up. This is the perfect example of the fight or flight response working as intended, to assist us in protecting ourselves and others in powerful ways. And here's how it works. When we perceive a threat, the body's sympathetic nervous system is activated. and the adrenal glands release adrenaline and cortisol. Our heart rate begins to increase, as well as our blood pressure and our breathing rate. Our pupils dilate, and often our skin becomes pale or flush. Muscles may tremble as they tense. The digestive system is turned off, and all of that energy and blood flow is sent to where it's needed. This is all in an attempt to prepare us to protect ourselves to fight, flight, or freeze. All of us have had the experience of the freeze response too. It happens when we are caught off guard by a stranger or even a screaming authority figure. We freeze and our minds go blank. Afterward, as we begin to recover from the freeze response, all the great comebacks start popping into our minds. We find ourselves thinking, boy, I wish I had said this, or I wish I had said that. Imagine for a moment sitting in a restaurant and turning to reach for your wallet. You realize it's not there. You begin to panic, and the fight, flight, or freeze response gets activated. Another example is a near-miss car crash. The fight or flight response gets turned on immediately. There are numerous examples, and I'm sure you've experienced many throughout your life. It can take several minutes or even hours to calm down and allow the body and the mind to begin to return to normal. Some fear is instinctive and some fear is learned behavior. I suppose you could consider me an expert in fear, as I lived in fear for several decades. You see, I am the youngest of 6 children, and when I was 2 years old, my father retired from 23 years in the military. I was proud of my father's service, and I still am. Although when he left the military, he didn't have the skills that he needed to support his family. And this, in turn, created a lot of stress and pressure in our household. There were constant fights over money, and some of those turned violent. For a young child like me, it was like living in a war zone, never knowing when my father's temper would go off. Eventually, things did calm down as my father gained his balance. But for me, the damage had already been done. And then I entered grade school. My parents always wanted the best for us, and they scrimped and saved to send all of their children through 8 years of parochial school in order to provide a solid foundation of education. Unfortunately, in my case, it backfired. The nuns were highly abusive. I was terrified of being home, and I was terrified of being at school. There was no escape for me. I still remember one nun so clearly. She was mean and hateful. I cried nearly every day. I lived in a constant state of fear, never knowing what was going to happen next. My fear became a learned behavior. And all of this unresolved stress and trauma would eventually result in a chronic illness that lasted for decades. And I'll talk more about that in future episodes. But for now, you can see how fear can be both instinctive and a learned response. There are all sorts of threats in this world, and that's when the fight or flight response serves us. That's what it's there for. Unfortunately, the fight or flight response can be triggered by imaginary events as well. This is called stress, and as mentioned previously, it is defined as fearful thoughts over future events. Will I lose my job? Will my children be safe? Will I get breast cancer like my mother and my sister did? Will I be able to pay this month's rent? And the list goes on and on. Further complicating the issue and adding to your stress is that we are hardwired toward the negative. This is also an instinctive behavior designed to help keep us safe. Drama is everywhere. I'm often taken back when I arrive at the grocery store and see someone standing outside on their phone just screaming at the person on the other end. Being angry makes us feel alive. but it also makes us sick. Take a good look at the entertainment available to you. 90% of it is drama and violence. Our brains are attracted to it, and media knows this. Drama and fear sell advertising. Is it possible that you're being controlled by media? Literally brainwashed? I believe we are. It's impossible to go anywhere without seeing the news. Walking through an airport, there are news channels being broadcast on every TV, every 50 feet. And they have the closed caption on, so even though you can't hear it, you won't miss a beat. Have you ever noticed how the news media will take one incident and replay it repeatedly until you've seen it 100 times? I cannot tell you how many times I saw the Twin Towers collapse on that tragic day. I think it was well over 1,000, maybe more. Those scenes are forever etched in our minds. What is mainstream media programming into your mind? I spoke to the director at my fitness center, which our local hospital supports. You know, those people who are supposed to keep us healthy. I asked her about the news channels being broadcasted. I was uncomfortable with it and I wanted to see if I could get it changed. I mean, I'm there to improve my health, so why do I need to have the news on while I'm working out? Although she agreed with me, she told me that unfortunately she is required to put CNN on one TV and Fox Network on the other. Did you hear that? She is required to do this. After having a very successful but long week at work, I decided to get a pedicure. It's my time to relax. I love sitting in those massage chairs and having my feet pampered. And usually they have some sort of fashion or cooking channel or the DIY channel on, but not that day. The news was on both TVs. There's just no escaping it. Everywhere you go, even restaurants, they're broadcasting the news. And here's the motivation. Mainstream media wants to get you all stressed out, and then on the commercial breaks, they're going to tell you what pharmaceuticals to ask your doctor for to help you with your anxiety, high blood pressure, and other stress-related illnesses. Watch for this. You'll see that I'm right. Drama sells, and the media knows this. And too many of us are addicted to drama. Are you? Sadly, I have friends who have the news on all day long. They can't get off their phones or tablets long enough to have a face-to-face conversation. They are addicted to social media. Is your household or workplace like this? If it is, it's essential that you make changes right away. Start detoxing your stress. Life is stressful enough without adding to it. One of the most important things you can do in order to start reducing the stress in your life is to turn off the TV and stay off social media. You can get your daily dose of news off the internet in less than an hour and pick and choose what you want to read and watch. And if you haven't heard, there's a Good News Network. You can find them at goodnewsnetwork.org. Thousands of good things and even miracles happen every day all around the world. If you're lucky, you might hear one good news story on mainstream media. It's part of their facade to keep you sucked in and believing that they are truthful in their reporting. Staying in fight, flight, or freeze too long causes us to miss the pleasures in life that are right there in front of us. We just can't see them because we are stuck. This causes us to age faster and have a lower tolerance level for those around us. All areas of our life are affected, including work, family, finances, faith, and relationships. But it's our health that suffers the most. Shockingly, it is estimated that over 80% of the American population lives with the fight or flight response turned on when not necessary. That's why we live in a very chronically ill nation. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 60% of all American adults suffer from a chronic health condition, and 40% suffer from 2 or more. Those statistics are staggering. We are too stressed and too sick, and all of this is feeding the pockets of Big Pharma. It's only when we realize that we have no control over the past and little control over the future that we can begin to release our stress. The only thing we really have control over is the present moment. Being in the present means being totally focused on the now moment, and this permits us to let go of fear and allow life to flow. Flow means living in faith, love, openness, and wonder. I invite you to stop for just a moment and take a good look around you. Ask yourself, am I living in fear in this moment? And if the answer is yes, is it real? I'm going to end by inviting you to take this even one step further. Keep a check on your fear. Your fears are there. Take a good look at your life and start recognizing your fears, worries, and concerns. Challenge them. Are they real or are they learned behavior? Write down every fear you can identify and begin to challenge them one at a time. So today we defined fear. We learned what fear is, why it's detrimental to our health and well-being, and how it can become a learned response. We learned that mainstream media and social media feeds it, and we learned a few ways to begin to shut it down. Stay with me, subscribe to my channel, because I'll be giving you more tips on how to manage and shut down this fear and turn on your healing response so that your body can get well. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and maybe share it with a friend who also needs it. I hope you found this episode thought-provoking. If you did, then I did my job well.